Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. I'm back and full of piss, vinegar, vitriol, ranting, information, news, all that good stuff. It's all pent up and built up. Did I miss anything the last few weeks? You do try to schedule a vacation for a time when things are slow in business or whatnot, but I couldn't change wouldn't change my vacation schedule to suit the crazy politics going on in Canada and the United States. So I just had to sit on my vacation and kind of watch from the sidelines until I could come back and rant and rave. Hard to cover all of everything that's been going on out there. So those of you watching live, Paradoxy, others, check in on there. Use that comment scroll, send me questions, comments, notions, ideas. I don't necessarily read them all out, but I do see them all on there, and it helps to move things along. I got Mike Thomas coming on in a little while as a guest. He's going to talk about, for those outside of Calgary, we've got a thing called the Green Line. It's just been an ongoing white elephant of a behemoth of a light rail transit expansion. That's just a gong show, and the price keeps going up and no track ends up going down. So we'll discuss that a little, because Mike's got a bit of a different take. We're not very nice to Gondek around here typically, Mayor Gondek of Calgary, but in this case, Mike says actually she's right. Boy, we wouldn't expect those words around here, but even a broken clock's right twice a day, right? Okay, I'm going to talk about our sponsor as well quickly here. This episode is sponsored by New World Precious Metals, and they're based right here in Alberta. Years of inflationary money printing and rising debt have decimated the average Canadian savings. Gold and silver are the only currencies that have held their value for thousands of years. Last year saw 30% gains, and WPM offers unique platforms to help protect and grow your hard-earned wealth with gold and silver. Check these guys out, newworldpm.com. And look at our economic outlook right now. Some money in gold and a few other things might be a good idea. The Canadian dollar, I don't hold out much faith. Good to see you there, Julia and Eldon. Thanks for coming on over from Rumble. We'll fix everything up and get it rolling. The show is available on a number of platforms. So let me talk about some of the stuff that's got me going. The Conservative Party of Canada, they're muted on the issue, though they're starting to drop hints. The Liberals won't even talk about it. Legacy media sure won't. What is it? Canada's bloated, inefficient civil service. It must be cut. Not tuned up, not examined. No new committee needs to be formed, and we can't afford some cowardly plan of job attrition to let the size of the bureaucracy shrink over time. There must be cuts, and they must be deep. Since becoming Prime Minister, Trudeau has grown the Canadian civil service by 42%. Over 61% of the federal budget is spent on wages and compensation. The wages are high, the holidays are extended, the benefits are huge, and the pensions are fantastic. Many of them work from home, and unsurprisingly, government services have become slower, more inefficient, despite constantly adding staff and pumping up the budgets. Simply renewing a passport has turned into an odyssey for people who find themselves mired in an inefficient, time-consuming mess. The Immigration Department has more than doubled its staff, yet it takes over 24 months for those baboons to process a refugee application. Those trying to diligently pay their taxes, the one trying to play by the rules, they struggle to get a straight or timely answer from the Canadian Revenue Agency, despite the agency employing 59,000 people. For comparison, the American Revenue Service employs 93,000 people to deal with a population 8 times Canada's size. No nation can enjoy general prosperity when sustaining such a large government. The pool of productive people working in value-added industries is shrinking relative to the people working in government sectors. Bureaucrats, they don't just cost dollars, they add roadblocks to every aspect of private enterprise and often individual freedoms as they instinctively add regulations on top of licenses, on top of inspections. The bureaucracy has become a self-serving monster, and it's only going to be tamed through a strong-willed government with a mandate to cut it down. If the path to freedom and prosperity was through big government, Venezuelans would be living the good life, and the Soviet Union would have turned into an economic powerhouse. Canada's productivity and GDP per capita have been in decline for years. Both will climb. We've seen it in Argentina fast enough if the burden of government can be lifted from the shoulders of citizens. Tax cuts can ease the cost of living and encourage investment. Regulation cuts will speed everything from the construction of homes and spurring enterprise in other industries. Canada's blessed with an abundance of natural resources, a skilled workforce, and a peaceful environment, and we're right next door to the biggest consumer market on the planet. The yoke of big government, though, on citizens is driving the nation down. Now, in the United States, Elon Musk is tasked with heading up the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short. Musk proved how useless bureaucracies can be and how bad managerial bloat can get when he laid off 85% of the staff at Twitter, and it didn't even adversely impact services. Obviously, they weren't doing a hell of a lot. He'll be proving it further when he begins cutting the size of the government in the USA, and the impact is going to be quick. Canada's already struggling to be competitive on the world market. And with the USA streamlining its government burden, Canada's competitiveness is going to become even worse and our productivity is going to suffer. Investment in skilled personnel are going to be drawn south, while a smaller pool up here tries to feed the ever-hungry Canadian bureaucracy. It's a recipe for economic disaster, no less acute than that's being threatened with Trump's tariffs. Just servicing Canada's national debt now costs the government as much as it takes in from GST. The issue in Canada is not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem, and there's few worse ways to spend money than on the interest payments for a debt. The reasons to cut the size of the government are clear. Are they enough, though, to inspire the next prime minister to do what must be done? It won't be easy to make the cuts. The unions are going to go wild. Legacy media is going to flood the airwaves with scenes of single mothers being evicted from homes and pouring onto the streets with broods of hungry children due to having been laid off from a government position. The prime minister's going to have to remain strong. Canada's bloated government costs far more jobs in the private sector and lowers the standard of living more than any round of public sector layoffs are going to do. What's the role of a government job anyway? Is it not to provide a service? If the only service in providing employment for a government employee is a work for welfare program, like if that's the only point of the service, it'd be cheaper just to pay them to stay at home. In fact, that's what many of them are doing right now. With the shackles of taxes and regulations removed, Canada would experience an employment boom as investment enters the country. Wages climb and new enterprises open. Canada could finally reverse that decline in GDP per capita as industry growth overtakes government growth. The opportunity to make heavy cuts doesn't come often, though. In the early 90s, it was spurred by double-digit interest rates. Currently, it's because our neighbor and largest trading partner is poised to make cuts. We got to get on board. Hesitation will lead to delays, and Canada will remain an investment pariah with a declining standard of living. Canada's next prime minister must strike fast, without apology, to bring the government down to size. We need voices to encourage and support him or her to ensure they remain on the right course. On that subject, before I go to a news check with Dave, I just saw that breaking. What President Trump is doing right now, and I'm sure through Musk and through that government efficiency department, is offering 2 million civil servants in the United States basically an early buyout package, 5 to 8 months of severance if you guys quit right now. And that gives them at least a transition allowance to move on into something else. They aren't straight out cutting, but it's huge. That's a massive offer to cut the workforce. And if it doesn't work, it's being clear he's going to cut anyways. So here's your chance, guys. Take that 5 to 8 months, retrain, search, take a break, whatever you want to do, or an early retirement, but move on. He plans on cutting the size of that government. And if we don't do it, we're going to fall behind badly. Okay, let's see what else has been going on this last little while. I got our news editor, Dave Naylor, in here. How's it going, Dave?
Holy tan, Batman. Look at you.
Yeah, I got a little bit of sun down there.
So you stayed in the world's largest trailer park, I understand.
Basically, yeah, quartzsite zone, tens of thousands of RVs out in the desert, enjoying the southern sun and barren wilderness.
Sounds like a big party.
Kind of. Yeah. Some of them partied up quite a bit. I'm pretty lame as far as that goes.
Yeah, lots of hippies?
There are a lot of hippies, but I can look the other way.
I was thinking of you yesterday when I put up a story on a female rap star out of Detroit who weighs 500 pounds.
Yes.
And she's suing Lyft because the Lyft driver refused to take her because he was worried she might flatten his tires. And I know you've said before you're an Uber driver.
That's right.
How would you handle that situation?
Well, I saw the videos of her. I do drive Uber. It's no secret. I've talked about that on here. I like that as a side thing. It gets me out. It gets me talking to people, makes a few bucks. I drive a little Hyundai Venue. I don't think even if I was willing to put her in the car, if she would fit through that door, I'd have to get people like, the Japanese train style to push her through. Yeah. And then how the hell would I get her out?
Exactly. You'd have to have some pullers.
Or through some chocolate bars on the other side, she might dive after. But I mean, seriously, that could damage a vehicle. It's 500 pounds. It's like putting a steer in your backseat.
Exactly. So
weird.
Yeah, you've missed a little bit of news, eh? The whirlwind of Donald Trump's first week continued. Last night, he signed into law banning child sex changes. One of the things he ran on in the campaign. So, as Daniel Smith likes to say, promise made, promise kept. No more child sex changes in the States. I know a story close to your heart, Cory, is the alleged graves at the residential school in Kamloops. It's been revealed this week, $12 million that went there. Was not spent trying to locate bodies. It was spent on publicists and administration costs and various things like that. So our columnist Heidi Rubenstein takes a deep dive into that. And he's a bit of an expert, as you know. Burger King launching a new, I don't even know if I can call it a burger. It's a slab of meat inside a donut. So just picture this. It's 800 calories.
that all?
It's only 800 calories, and I'm sure it probably tastes real good. It doesn't look great, but right now it's only being test driven in Ecuador.
Ah.
So if you want to get one, you got to go on a bit of a plane ride. So RFK doesn't need to worry about it coming to the States for a little bit yet. Quebec minister came out this week and said multiculturalism does not work. It creates ghettoizations of immigrants. And he says the rest of Canada, you can have it. Doesn't work in Quebec. And we've got Black Hawk on patrol now in Alberta. RCMP Black Hawk patrolling the U.S. border, trying to stop the flow of drugs and illegal immigrants. And a big press conference this afternoon. Danielle Smith, 2 p.m., going to talk about the Heritage Savings Trust Fund. That's the main thing on the agenda, but obviously she'll be asked about Trump. There was a First Minister's conference call today with the Prime Minister, and it's getting close. Saturday's only a day or two away when the tariffs are supposedly coming. So, letting down the hatches.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, either is believable, right? Saturday could come and there'd be no tariffs. That wouldn't be shocking, but him laying them on there on Saturday it's just as likely.
Yeah, and it could be at like 2 a.m. or when he's on the golf course. He's gloriously unpredictable.
That he is. Well, as an anarchistic type, I kind of like it, but I'm kind of terrified at the same time.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks, Dave. I'll let you get back into that newsroom and hammering on all those stories, and see you after the show.
Thanks, Roy.
So that is our news editor, Dave Naylor. And this one, I'd like to remind everybody the reason we can keep those stories going up there. And boy, they were just popping up on the site so fast today is because you guys have been subscribing. That's how we do it. We don't take any tax dollars. We refuse to. It keeps us accountable to you. For those who've already subscribed, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Share it. Spread the word. Get others. Nag them to subscribe too. This is how we keep media honest and independent. And if you haven't subscribed yet, guys, it's $10 a month. $100 for a year. Well worth it. I mean, you used to subscribe to a newspaper without thinking twice. This is the same thing. westernstandard.news/subscription. It keeps us going. It keeps us accountable to you. And there I see Josh Andrus commenting, and he was sitting in for me for the last couple of weeks on the show. And I don't like to make his head swell any further than it has to, but he really did do an awesome job. I really appreciate him sitting in. When I sent him the note, I wasn't kidding. I couldn't leave him sitting there too much longer, or he'd fully replace me, and I wouldn't have a show for myself anymore. So thanks, Josh. I'll see you back in this chair maybe in about 11 and a half months, eh? All right, yeah, so all this news, it's just where do you stop, right? So let's talk about the woke and the insane. This one came up recently. It was brought up by J.K. Rowling online. This is an Albertan issue that got international coverage, and it should. A man, and this is a man, there's no doubt about it, was put into a woman's shelter, this pervert. And what did he do? Well, he assaulted the women in the women's shelter in Edmonton. This guy, he doesn't look even a little bit like a woman. It's not like a trans person where you might have mistaken them for a woman. We should have a picture. There he is. Really. So this person identified as a woman, and they said, let's put this guy into a shelter full of women who are trying to hide from men who assaulted them. And then they got put in with this guy, and he assaulted them. It's insane. It's insane. This is beyond the pale. And how does this happen? Well, it happens because DEI woke morons who come out with a degree in gender ideology, which ironically teaches them that there's more than two genders, and there aren't. Get over it. These are the ones that are also feminists at the same time, and they understand, and there is a need for women's shelters. There's abusive spouses, monsters, animals out there, and women and family need a place to transition and hide and get themselves together. And the safe space we set aside for these women, and instead they stuck this pervert in with them. And these women who had already been abused once, frightened once, dealt with this, had to deal with it again in a safe space. They're never going to feel safe for the rest of their lives. This is unforgivable. And it was some self-styled feminist moonbat idiot who said, well, we have to let him in because he said he identifies as a woman. He's got a deck of knackers, guys. That's all the test you need. It really is. This doesn't have to be complicated. If they got the plumbing of a man, they don't go into a woman's shelter. Yet we haven't figured that out. And this is Alberta. I thought we were supposed to be one of the brighter ones in Canada, but apparently no, we actually stick sex offenders into women's shelters. again, it didn't. I'd say it leaves me lost for words, but as you can see, no, I got plenty of words. It makes it hard for me to hold back the expletives I really want to use on this one. Either way, let's get on with that. Let's talk about some other things. Big government, big waste, big confusion. It's the big green line, and we got Mike Thomas in studio to talk about it. And it's been big news. And I'll kind of frame it a little bit. I mean, for people outside of Alberta, though, it seems like Ottawa, I think Montreal, Edmonton. There's big transit projects, Vancouver, happening all over. They're trying to get these train projects going, and they're almost invariably turned into boondoggles. Calgary has the green line, and this has been going and going and going. And now we've kind of culminated with a weird vote yesterday on a provincial version of it.
Yeah, they should call it the yellow line because it's turned into a lemon, Cory. Council voted reluctantly. Calgary City Council voted, I think, reluctantly in favor of the Alberta government's revision to the line, which has gotten people up in arms because it is elevated through the downtown core. Over top of 10th Avenue in Calgary, if you're not familiar with that, it's a very busy main road that runs east and west and has a lot of buildings. Businesses, including hotels and restaurants and things like that, running along the street. Now they're going to have a train running over top of them. And the Alberta government is of the mind, well, that won't affect the business. Yeah, right.
Yeah. If anybody's been to Chicago and seen underneath how nice that part of town is where all the elevated train lines are, you build insta slums kind of.
Yeah, and the Alberta government came in. They've been a partner on the thing all along, and with them and the feds and of course City Calgary government. But they came in late last year with a revision to the plan, which shortened the green line, which was supposed to be running from all the way in northwest Calgary from 160th Avenue. And if you're not familiar with Calgary, that's way up north, and then running down to the southeast part of the city to an area called Shepherd. And the Alberta government said, nah, you don't need that. Let's just go from Shepherd. We'll take it into downtown, and we'll stop in downtown initially, and we'll see what happens after that. And so that goes against the plans. The Green Line was part of former Mayor Head Nenchi's plans, and in those days, it was a huge thing. Like I say, way up in the northwest, down to the southeast, but it's now been narrowed down to what I just mentioned at the cost of $6.23 billion that is shared between the city at 47%, the province 26%, and the feds 27%. So that's basically where we stand right now. And we were talking earlier, and I was at council last night watching all of this happen, and I'll be very honest, it's not very often I agree with the mayor, but Mayor Gondak got out of the meeting, the private meeting they had, and just ripped the province apart. It's in an article I wrote that's up on the website now, I think. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked that she would do that. And I was even more shocked that I agreed with her, because I don't, like I say, I don't very often agree with her, but she's absolutely right. The contention being that the part going over 10th Avenue and then elevated again into downtown is going to be very, very disruptive.
Yeah, well, the construction alone, I mean, we know these things don't happen fast, and there's a lot of businesses under there. They're going to be decimated.
Yeah.
But some people would say you have to break some eggs to make an omelet, blah, blah, blah. But they don't take into account the impacts, really, it seems. But I mean, this is kind of a pissing match that's been going on for quite a while. I mean, so some of the language that was interesting out of it from the province, and I got to admit, sounded pretty heavy-handed from above when we're supposed to be a decentralized model. It's saying that the city's going to get the liability and they're going to deal with the construction, they're going to deal with the debt and everything else, but you're going to do our plan.
Yeah,
so,
and that's good that you mentioned that, because when the province came back with their revision to the plan, they said, well, this, that, and that's going to add. The city looked at it and went, well, that's going to add $1.3 billion to the costs. And there are all kinds of liabilities involved in this thing, obviously. And the province says, no, that's on you. But you're right. The city's got to do it the Alberta government way or no way. And if there's any problems, liabilities, it's on the city. Interesting, last night, a condo complex in Eau Claire burned down.
The ironic timing.
It's like, whoa, where did that come from? But this condo complex was expropriated by the city to the tune of pretty close to $21 million to get the owners out. It was being demolished. It was scheduled to be demolished because there was going to be a Green Line station at that point. So it was, like I say, it was being demolished. And then last night, after this, the vote said, yeah, okay, I guess we got to go with the province. It burned down. And I don't know. I'm not going to suggest that.
just that region's full of irony anyways. I mean,
Yes.
for those of us old enough to remember, I mean, it used to be a horrible area with the old bus barns and Greyhound station a long time back. The city planners changed it to Eau Claire. It was going to be the Granville Island of Calgary. This was going to be a brilliant area, and it sort of failed catastrophically over the years.
Terrible.
And now they're tearing that mess down, and they've put in now a fictional LRT station. It's going to be a dead zone again.
Actually, the LRT isn't going to go anywhere near there.
No, not with the latest plan. But
No.
I mean, who would invest in anything there right now? Because you don't know what it's going to be next month.
No, exactly. I mean, it never really took off the way they thought it was going to, and now it has no chance of taking off at all.
It's kind of in flux. So, I mean, getting into the bigger issue, as I said, other cities, everybody deals with this. What I see part of the problem of getting anything done is you've got three levels of government. In this ideal world, okay, everybody's pitching in, but they all come with strings attached. They all want to make their mark.
Yep.
And it's bad enough getting one government managing to get something done. When you got three, two of which put strings attached typically to the funding, you end up with this.
Yeah, well, you'll never get anything done with three levels of government that involved monetarily. Now, the feds they said, yeah, we'll give you the money. And they pretty much have stayed out of it. It's the Alberta government that's come in and scared the chickens in the hen house.
Well, getting further back though, I mean, it was the recent release. This kind of made it all hit the fan last July, I think it was. That's when the latest city plan or whatever had come down to. They'd scaled this thing down now to like 4 stations and 10 kilometers long, and wanted to tack on another $1.5 billion in the price.
Yeah.
So, should they just been left alone to say, yeah, we'll go with that? I mean, it was becoming untenable.
Well, I think I'm not a big fan of government involvement in anything, but I think probably I mean, it's easy to look back at something like that and come up with a solution, obviously. But all levels of the government should have gone. There are construction associations and companies in the city who do these things. It's their job. And they should have said, we want a train to go from here down to there, bring us a plan. But they didn't. The city bureaucracy did it in-house, and that's a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you don't go to a radiator mechanic to get your teeth fixed, and that's pretty much what a bureaucracy is about.
So what's the solution? Do you think this train line is ever going to get done?
I think eventually. Now that because it's always been about the money, and I mean, they've done some things, but now that the money is pretty much guaranteed, they can start putting shovels in the ground. And I don't know if you're going to start downtown or if you're going to start in Shepherd, if they're going to build it from Shepherd North or build it from downtown south. But yeah, I think it will get done now, finally.
And the time and the cost will be the other questions. I mean, it sounds like, and I saw it as interesting, it seemed a bit strategic. I think it was Evan Spencer, one of the councillors, talking about just saying, well, we got to get them to start digging in the south like right away. Perhaps I get the feeling let's get it irreversible. Now the tracks are on the ground, even if only a couple of blocks. Yeah. It's moving. Let's quit stopping now. We got to get it done. And we could fight about downtown over the next 5 years while they build it to the...
Well, it's interesting because Spencer at the council meeting last night called the decision poopy.
Yes. It's not a term you hear in council.
No, not too often. But yeah, Cory, I think it's going to get done. How long it's going to take is another issue. Are there going to be other problems that get in the way? Oh yeah, of course. There's going to be things when people in, for example, Cory Park, where it's going through in Southeast Calgary, or even in Ramsey, Inglewood, where it turns to go west after running north. Ramsey, Inglewood, for the people who don't know, are probably the oldest neighborhoods in Calgary. And I'm guaranteeing you that most people living there right now have no clue that this thing is coming to their neighborhood. And it's going to disrupt things like crazy.
Oh, yeah. And there's some of the irony. Again, going back 30 years when I moved to Calgary, you didn't want to go into Inglewood at night. It was rough. The old National Hotel, the prostitutes. It was just a bad end of town. And to their credit, I mean, I didn't believe it when the city back then said, you know, we're going to fix this area up. And they did. They turned it around. It's a trendy area, nice shops, expensive condos. You go blasting an LRT line through there, you're going to send it back into being a ghetto.
Well, yeah. It's just people are going to wake up one day and see all this stuff going on in front of their houses, people digging ditches and laying down track, and they're going to go, what happened? But, you know, it brings me to another point. It's an election year in Calgary.
Yes, get there.
And Calgarians are notoriously bad when it comes to showing up at the polls. And so there are going to be people who wake up one morning to the LRT and they're going past the front windows and they're going to say, what the heck? Where did this come from? But Calgarians really got to get off their butts and participate in the election this year. It's vital. It's absolutely important to get. And there's like 100,000 new Calgarians in the city this year, I think, something like that. And they've got to get to the polls. They got to pay attention to what's going on so that they don't wake up and are surprised by an LRT going by.
Yeah, well, it's like the old statement. It's a true one. In a democracy, you get the government you deserve. I'm going to talk a little after this about how messed up our democracy is.
Yeah.
Trying to get the government reserve federally, but at least municipally. I mean, that's government close to you. That's government that impacts you more than you imagine. And most people, I hate to say it, but couldn't name their local councillor. They wouldn't even know who it is. And pay attention, because this is, when you express shock when that rail line's across the street.
Well, I think, it's something happened in the city last year, but I think people don't think they can fight City Hall, and City Hall proved you shouldn't when they did the upzoning, blanket upzoning thing last year. And 70% of the Calgarians at a public hearing said, no, we don't want it. And yet council went ahead and did it. Well, you just got to get out and fight. But it was good to see that many people come out and take up the fight. Even if they lost, at least they got out there.
Well, that's it. And the opportunity is coming this fall. I mean, this is the crabbiest I think I've seen in general with people with I mean, they got grumpy with Ninchy, but Gondek has really not endeared herself, nor a lot of those councillors. No. It's not surprising to see some like Mian, I believe, already announced she's not going to run again. Spencer's not going to run again. Yeah. I think they already read the writing on the wall. They're just getting out.
Yeah, I think with those two, I think there are probably another 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, and these are only first termers too. So I mean, they've had one taste in their salad.
Well, yeah. Look, I've been hanging around City Hall a lot in the last couple of months.
My condolences.
I tell you what, you need danger pay.
It is something else. And, before I let you go, I mean, just to remind people, because that's what we need more of too. The other part, not just taking part in elections, but there's one of the differences with press evolution. We don't have the coverage of city halls like we used to. I mean, you used to have a whole lineup of reporters in the gallery for every boring meeting, just in case something of importance came out. Now, not many people are. You're thankfully, donning the hat and going down there and watching that, so this is kind of the final plug. You write regularly, and you're going to continue watching this on our behalf?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think the Green Line's probably off my agenda for a while, but there'll be more.
There will be plenty, especially as an election year unfolds.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for keeping an eye on it.
Thank you, Cory. Appreciate it.
A summary of it for us. And I look forward to more of the coverage as it unfolds.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Have a good day.
You do it.
Okay.
All right. That was Mike Thomas. Yes, he covers many things, as you can tell, journalistic veteran still at it here for us. And, it's a problem, as I said, for people across the country. Every city hall has this issue going on. And a lot of it is our own bloody fault due to apathy. We have the means to get out and fire these guys. We have the means to pay a little bit of attention, if only once every 4 years, and realize, my Lord, this person's a twit. Vote for somebody else. But we don't do it. Turnouts in civic elections are horrible in Calgary. I think I've seen them as low as 20% over the years. Getting back to, there's something, I've been very much a fan of the UCP in Alberta and Danielle Smith and a lot of the things she's doing and a lot of the things she's done. I'm concerned about others. When I talk about the size of government, I talked about spending and things like that. Well, they haven't cut spending, and I'd like to see that. We're supposed to be conservative. That's staying up there. We're not cutting our civil service. We should be. Alberta's actually pretty bad for that. We got a pretty bloated one ourselves. So, I mean, I'm not just going to beak at the federal government for not finding the courage to do it. The provincial government needs to as well, and the city. I see some of the discussion from others in the comments scroll. Wild Rose, Angry Canadian, talking about independence and whether, we're looking at 51st state stuff or Alberta moving along, which is, of course, very familiar turf with me. One of the things I've always said, and I said it, making my own plug in my own book when I wrote the Separatist Sovereigntist Handbook. If Alberta seriously wants to go independent, though, they've got to clean up their own backyard first. If you want to convince voters in Alberta to take a referendum vote and leave or change the situation in the Federation or anything, you have to prove that we can be any better. If it's still big government, if it's still not democratic, if it's still not serving the people right, then why would you think that you'd be doing any better in a smaller version of it? So we got to pay attention to the municipal politics. We got to get on the case of our provincial leaders. And as I said, something that got me increasingly uncomfortable with the Smith government, and for the most part, I think, Premier Smith's doing great, but they really are top down. It's ironic when they complain as much about the federal government pushing into the jurisdiction of the provincial government, and rightly so, but they have been very heavy-handed when it comes into the jurisdiction of the municipal governments and pressuring them and putting strings onto the transfers or talking about regulations and things that would manage municipal politics. That's where I get a little more uncomfortable. Isn't the principle supposed to be the same all the way along? Shouldn't you leave the local government more in the hands of the people? And I've seen people saying, we need Smith to intervene. Look how terrible the mayor is, or look how terrible our councillor is, or our reeve, or whatever it might be. True, they might be terrible, but whose fault is that? You want the premier or a minister of hers to step in and deal with that, or should we be doing it as electors? And I mean, I won't go down the rabbit hole of recall, but that's one way between elections to do it. But we do get the chance every election, and we don't take advantage of it. Got to start firing these guys. Got to start putting better ones in. We shouldn't be counting on a higher level of government to intervene. I mean, going further along in that sense, that's like saying we should have Trudeau intervene and overrun our premier, Danielle Smith, when she's doing something here. That's not the way to do it. We should be bringing government, the ability to control government closer to home. Our municipal governments should be powerful. They're the close ones to us. But we have to hold them responsible. Voters, not the next level of government up. That's just adding another problem to it. So I won't applaud them for that. Let's get on to the federal government. Oh boy. So just before I left for my vacation, Justin Trudeau announced his intention to resign. He didn't actually fully resign yet. He said he's going to, after, and I'll go a little more into that in a moment, a robust leadership election process. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I drove all the way, pulled a fifth wheel with Jane all the way down to Arizona and back. A lot of driving time. I make poor Jane endure a whole lot of podcasts and such. And I listen to Joe Rogan. I like listening to Joe Rogan, but I don't often have the 3 hours to set aside to listen to him. But when I get road trips like that, I do. And it's funny because he broke down something, finally kind of defined something about Justin Trudeau I hadn't thought of, but it makes sense. He's talking, just that weird, creepy, breathy, performative way that Justin Trudeau speaks. Any conference, anything he's at, it's just that bizarre speech inflection he has, that way of putting himself. And Rogan said it's because it's performative. It's because he's acting. He's always acting. And yeah, we always kind of knew Trudeau was fake. We always knew he's acting. But you see, the way Rogan broke it down, he's right. If you ever watch old movies, acting evolved. If you look back all the way, to when it was just stage and theater, a person on a stage really had to exaggerate, be performative, really reach the audience with an exaggeration of emotion and statements. And then it moved on to movies, and it was silent movies. So you expressed yourself bodily greatly with that. And then the first actors, those old ones, they didn't talk anything like we talk today. The first radio hosts didn't talk like anybody does today. They had that weird inflection. You didn't see anybody on earth saying, frankly, I don't give a damn. Any of that sort of stuff. That was just the way they spoke back then. It was bad acting, actually. It was acting that needed to evolve into today. You look at movies of today, the intent of the actors is to seem at least as human as possible, so it seems like you're watching a real scene. Trudeau is a bad actor. He's not just an actor, he's a bad one. And not an endearing one. William Shatner's a terrible actor, but at least he made a character out of it, and we can kind of enjoy him. Trudeau's a terrible one. And yes, as others have said, Wild Rose, when Trudeau speaks, I need a shower. Yeah, I know. It just grates. It's going to be finally to see that guy in the rearview mirror is going to be such a good thing, but it's going to be a while yet. A good commenter saying, Lone Warrior says, how do you convince good people to run for office, though? It's tough. It's tough. You're asking a lot. I mean, people talk about cutting political pay and salary down to the bone. That's fine, but boy, some of the people you might want getting in, I mean, there's some great people working in the low income. They might be very smart and dedicated who make great politicians too, but a lot of people, you're asking them to take a heck of a wage cut to go into office then, especially if you reduce those amounts. And I know it sounds frightening when you're talking about politicians already making six figures, but you can only cut it so far. So you got to make sure they're well compensated, not overcompensated, absolutely, but they got to be well compensated. You got to convince the people running for office they can get something done. You want people running on an ideal to make things better. That's the reason a person does it, a professional or whether it's a person who works in a restaurant but just manages to run into fine, but they want to actually be making a good change. And if they don't feel they can make that change, they don't feel that it's actually doable, that they don't feel that putting their life on the line, going out there, becoming an elected official, and spending 4 years doesn't actually accomplish something, then why are they running? Well, then they are running for a better job or to line their pockets or something. That's not a good person. So I don't know if we need to improve this system, right? We need to make sure that people feel like it works, not just the voters, but the people running for office. They want to know they're getting into something that will be functional. And right now we are very, very dysfunctional. It's difficult. Where do we go with this? Getting to the Liberal race, for example. The leadership race. Now, I'll give them a little bit of a break. This kind of happened suddenly. You didn't expect it. We kind of expected Trudeau was finally going to give it up and leave. But we didn't know when. And suddenly, bang, it's there. It's in front of them. Grudgingly, Trudeau announces his intention to resign. The Liberals have to rush it in a process that they usually spend 6 months to do for a leadership race. They squashed into 2 months. But now they've turned it into a coronation. And it's ridiculous. Plus, their standards of how and what you do to lay right. See, back in 2014 or whenever they did it last, they allowed people to become members for free. Nice, idealistic, blah, blah, blah. All you had to do is fill out a form online. It's a nice way to actually just kind of get out of mind, bring in more people in there because those are the people you'll hit up later for donations and participation in elections, things like that. In political parties, when we used to do mail out everything, $10 a year for a membership fee would be just about enough to cover the amount of mailing and dealing with the members. And then you want to reach further to hopefully bring them and get them engaged or get further contributions from them. So they said, screw it, let's go free. Everything's digital. We can do that. Now everybody can sign up for a leadership race for free online. You know what? In the last leadership race, it didn't really improve the amount of people coming out to take part in it. But people have learned a whole heck of a lot about digital campaigning and getting people involved. So now, even though the membership window for the Liberal leadership was open and closed quickly, many, many, many people were signing up for free to vote in that race. And I'm forgetting his name now, Arya or Chandra. There was a Liberal member of Parliament. He was a backbencher. He'd been there forever, but he'd been there for 3 terms. And he started to run. And he put a campaign together, and he was hammering hard. And thousands of people were signing up with those free memberships to vote for him. But they want Carney. It became clear. And he scared them. And you can tell he scared them because they kicked him out of the race. The Liberal Party hasn't given a reason why they kicked him out of the race. He was good enough to be a member of Parliament for them for almost 12 years. But suddenly he's not good enough to be in the race. It's rigged. It's rigged. It's a Carney coronation. And yes, sure, this gentleman was probably playing the ethnic vote and doing other things, but he did it fast enough that it looked like, oh, wow, this could really disrupt our coronation of Carney. We've got to kick him out of the race. We don't have to give a reason. We'll just kick him out. And they did. But getting back to the earlier question, how do you get good people to run for office? Who wants to run, put their life on hold, as I said, do all that, and jump into a rigged game? How does it? Because a good person doesn't want to go into a rigged game. I see Gord Tulk commenting, and he's been fair enough online. Because I when that happened, I like doing my online trolling and poking and stirring things up. And I have been encouraging people, get on there and vote for Ruby with the Liberals. Sign up, take out that free membership, and throw a vote for her now. Since the Liberals have basically discredited their entire race, let's just jump on to the next one and put another scare into it. It looks like she, as a candidate, and she's kind of a fringe candidate, an interesting character, has embraced that. She's taken on a hyper-conservative role and is running on that. And it's just interesting to watch. It's basically just throwing a wrench into a Liberal political process. And Gordon pointed out it's just not really a principled thing to do if you're just trying to screw with somebody else's party rather than, build your own. Fair enough. It's fair comment. Absolutely. Because others have said, and the Liberals even said, you know what, if you fraudulently take out a Liberal membership, you could be fined up to $10,000. Oh, whatever. Look, that's like an in-park fine. Think of it this way. Yes, there's a little thing that says you're not a member of another federal party when you sign up to join the Liberal Party. And you have to say that you weren't a member of another federal party. Okay. If you fraudulently were a member of a federal party, if the Liberals somehow even found out and could prove that, how they could without getting the membership list of the other party, then they could come after you, I guess, and say you fraudulently signed up. But then as a defense, you say, oh, well, I didn't realize I was still a member. Lots of little defenses like that. Even if they judge, because they'd have to take you to court. They don't have the ability to fine you, not directly fine you. So the judge would say, well, okay, we could levy a fine equal to the offense. Well, you paid $0 to get in. You have a bit of a defense in saying perhaps you didn't even remember you're a member of the other party. I'm just saying as the legalities go, it's just a hollow threat on the part of Liberals. But is it nice? Is it principled to jump in and screw with another process? No, probably not. I didn't feel badly about it just because I guess, some people can say two wrongs don't make a right, fine. But I just say that they already completely discredited their process when they kicked one of the candidates out in favor of another one. I mean, you kick a candidate out if there is a reason for it. You've got to have something to state, and they won't even state it. They don't respect the voters, the Liberals, anybody enough. They want to put Carney in. The other scary part is Carney is short on time. He's desperate. So Carney gets in, he wins this thing. He's got maybe 2 weeks as prime minister before he's into an election, the way things were lining up. Maybe. It's not enough time to turn things around. The Liberals, I mean, despite crazy Frank Graves' poll, they are in the toilet. Their chances of winning the next election are extremely, extremely slim. If they really hope, if Carney does dream that he could turn this around, he needs time. He would need to get in. He would need to bring in some policies. He'd need to build a team. He needs to do many, many, many things. But he will only have 2 weeks. And as Paradox, you just pointed out, Singh will prop them up for as long as he can. And that's what happened. Yesterday, Singh was already hinting, well, you know what? Because even though Singh said over and over, this government is coming down, first possible opportunity, I'm going to take this government down, no matter who's leading it. He lied. He lied. Singh's a liar. Socialists are liars. Get used to it. That's their nature. He's a self-serving wimp is all he is. Singh is a sad specimen of a politician. So yeah, he flip-flopped again. He will keep Carney in, but as I said, he's self-serving. He will keep him in at a price. Trudeau talked about recently already saying, well, we could bring in an aid package on the level of the COVID-19 package to deal with the tariffs. The tariffs aren't even in yet. This is Singh's demand. That's what's happening behind closed doors. This is a UBI program. This is a massive, massive social welfare program. This would be talking about tens of billions of dollars when we're already tens of billions of dollars in the hole. You thought inflation was bad before? It will get a heck of a lot worse. But that's Singh's demand. Singh saying, bring this in, this giant spending program, this giant living on the credit cards of taxpayers, and I'll support you. And maybe I'll buy you that 6 months in power that you can, hopefully have a chance. Some people think, and there's the other thing to remind you, just to keep you from getting a good sleep tonight. Constitutionally, the Liberals don't have to go to an election until October 2026. I think it's very unlikely they'll push it that far. But the Election Act is just an act. It can be changed by the government any time. They can change that date. The only time they're fully outright forced is 5 years after the last election. And, I think it was Wild Rose that said, does any of this actually surprise you? I manage to get surprised now and then. I do. I still try to maintain some optimism. But they still manage to surprise me. But I get a sour view of it too. We're seeing some of the worst, ugliest power play of politics that we possibly can. Canada's system is hopelessly broken. It makes it nearly impossible to hold these people to account between elections. And we're seeing that with this prorogation, with these deals being cut in the minority government, with these things happening when the majority of the country clearly does not want this. And there's not a single bloody thing they can do about it. We are being held hostage. Alberta is in an abusive relationship. If anything does come in a tariff war, rest assured, Alberta and the West will be thrown under the bus as a sacrificial lamb to try futilely to fight against Trump's tariffs. I'll leave with the one commenter from Lynn Meyer saying Carney's even more dangerous than turd face was the term used, but Trudeau. And there's truth to it, because Trudeau, whatever he was, an ideologue and many other things, he's also an idiot. He has his sweater on backwards the other day. I mean, this man gets his shoes wrong on the wrong feet every second day. Carney is just as much an ideologue as Justin Trudeau is, but he's smart. And that's a hell of a lot scarier than the fool who we're getting rid of. Let's just hope we get an election sometime soon. All right, guys. Like, share, do all that great stuff for us. Come on, let's make this channel great again. Let's get it out there. And thank you all for tuning in this week. Tune into the pipeline tonight. We're breaking a bunch of that down with a panel. And yes, I will see you next week with a new guest, a new lineup, and we'll discuss what's broken in the next week. Who knows? It's crazy news. So thank you again. It's great to be back, and I'll see you in a week.